and Kendall is not in the Super Drive morph, but is then in Super Mode Fart. Piss. Merry Christmas, heroes. Well, not really, but in Rangerville it is. Welcome to not just another Power Rangers Dino SuperCharge episode review, but the last one. Yes, bittersweetly, we've reached the end of our journey with Keeper and the Ranger Kids. It's time for one last romp with our favorite dinosaur caretakers. So, let's unwrap episode 22. Not the finale, but the final episode of Dino SuperCharge. Here comes Heximas. We begin with one last new narration sequence that quickly explains the two seasons and then that End of Extinction happened. The only problem with that is that the last few minutes of End of Extinction are the only things that actually happened. And don't worry, this is far from the last mistake this episode makes regarding time travel. The episode begins by showing us that, yes, the dinosaurs are still around. In fact, T-Rex is wearing a Santa hat. Not only would T-Rex not wear a Santa hat, he would eat whoever tried to put it on him. And the Brontosaurus, which in fact the T-Rex should also be trying to eat, is wearing antlers and a red nose. So, Santi-Rex and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Bronto? Shelby finishes her rounds in the zoo and finds Chase and Riley tangled up in Christmas lights in the cafe. What is Chase still doing there? Wasn't he going back to New Zealand? As a matter of fact, are we to just assume that without finding the Energems, all 5 of the core Rangers just ended up at the Amber Beach dinosaur whatever it is anyway? I mean, okay, Chase and Riley and maybe Tyler, I can believe that they may have just decided now to move to Amber Beach. But Shelby's job requires a lot of education and training that would mean her entire life directed her to the dinosaur zoo. As Chase and Riley get tripped up by the lights, they see presents under the tree for each of them as well as one for Shelby. The presents say open now, so they do so. Inside are lumps of coal. At first they think it's a joke, but then each of them is covered in red light and we slam cut to the opening sequence. Tyler gets back from the Amber Beach wreath store, apparently, but there's nobody in the cafe. By the way, this is a very minor detail that I've kind of been saving these entire 2 seasons, but kind of out of time to get it in, huh? This dino mouth entrance to the inside of the cafe, due to the fact that the bottom jaw needs to have a flat section for a floor so people can walk in, to me, it's always looked like a demon that has one of those jaws that can open in half at the bottom. Weird. Tyler sees presents for himself and Kendall, so he takes them down to the lab. Via the slide. Meaning that he went outside, around the back of the building, and into the T-Rex head and down the slide. Instead of just getting to the lab by walking through the back of the kitchen like the Rangers did a ton of times. Tyler gives Kendall her present, and now the name situation with Kendall is reversed. He calls her Miss Morgan at first by habit, but then corrects himself to Kendall. And by the way, I saw this a little bit online for any of you wondering how the lab was so quickly and easily fixed. Remember that it was never actually broken. Because time travel. Which really is the tagline for this entire episode. Because time travel. Speaking of because time travel, look, it's the Rainbow Portal. Keeper steps through carrying the Energems, which is his job after all, and also bringing along Ivan and Coda in their period-appropriate clothing. The funny thing to me about this is that Keeper could have chosen to do this right after End of Extinction. We saw that he's able to direct that portal to an exact day. He could have picked a day for Ivan and Coda that gave them a little time to bond back with their families, and then brought everybody directly to Christmas Day 2016. Or rather, Christmas Eve, as Shelby says. So after hugs and reunions are had, Tyler opens that present, and the lump of coal turns him into an evil elf. Without a name, just an evil elf. He even says as much. They tie him up, and Kendall analyzes the coal. Her detailed report on it is, it has a strange energy. Though this is still more helpful than Keeper, who says that Coda must remind Tyler of who he is. It's gotta be Coda, because Coda tells Tyler who he is with the help of clip show memories, because this is a Neo Saban holiday special of Power Rangers. Get used to it, everybody. The one thing I did like, though, is that it does use clips from both seasons, which gave this a very final, wrapping things up sort of feel. It works, Tyler remembers who he is, and ditches the mall Santa helper outfit. They realize that Shelby, Riley, and Chase opened their presents, so they need to go find them. I wonder who can help with that. Or rather, I wonder who can help with that. As in, ho ho ho! None other than Santa Claus calls the Rangers, needing their help again. All of his naughty kid coal has been stolen. You don't say. The Rangers know who, Santa knows where. Keeper has a Christmas present for the Rangers, the Energems. The ones they never bonded to because they never found them in the first place, except that they were bonded to them because they used them in the past, even though they erased the events that led to them finding them. No, how about? So, it turns out the Rangers are still bonded to their Energems, which means that they will never age. Theoretically, these people will live forever. Which also means that Ivan and Coda could have just actually shown up in 2016 at the museum. In fact, I was kind of hoping that that's what was going to happen, but no. That is far too linear and logical thinking for an episode like this. The Rangers head to a factory and see Shelby, Riley, and Chase working alongside Vivix, working for a monster, Heximas. As they wonder how that's all possible, Shelby hops into a truck and drives it away. Chase and Riley get into the back of another truck to get some more coal when the Rangers slam the door shut and steal the truck, driving it back to the lab. A little Grand Theft Auto for the greater good. Chase Elf tells the Rangers that Heximas' plan is to create evil elves all over the world who will come to steal the Rangers' Energems. The ones that they aren't bonded to anymore because they didn't, but they are because no. Ivan takes a knee to help one of these two remember who they are, and of course it's the one that he has more in common with, spent some time with in episodes, and we saw the two of them bond and get closer. Of course, I'm referring to Chase. Wait, what? Yes, Ivan helps Chase remember who he is. Oh, and by the way, Ivan says that Chase found a woman, Kaylee, who loves him for who he is. We're going to come back to that, but for now, Chase recovers. It's Kendall who helps Riley remember who he is, because they're both smart. I would tell you what she said to him and what clips were shown, but honestly, I fast-forwarded through them while taking my notes because nobody cares about this stuff. Why are we doing? With the two of them recovered, Keeper gives them their Energems, gives Shelby's to Tyler, and says that he'll have Prince Philip, Zenowing, and James meet them. I mean, sure, easy peasy. They're just in a different country, a different time and planet, and, well, who really knows, respectively. Heximas has a rocket sleigh, because of course he does. The Rangers show up morphed, because, who would want a morphing sequence in the final episode of the series? Heximas tells the Rangers that he's been working on this plan for 65 million years. Man, Dino Charge monsters are long-lived. Building his rocket sleigh and growing Vivix, the show's very first reference to where those things come from, all for this very moment. Because, Christmas Eve 2006 just wouldn't have been as cool. So, how is Heximas even alive? As the Sledge 1 was crashing into the sun all those years ago, Heximas stole the last escape pod, tossing Wrench out of it. That's a real shame, too. If Wrench had gotten into that pod and survived, we might have had some hopes for a Dino Charge Ninja Steel team-up. Oh well. Heximas sicks Shelby along with the Vivix on the Rangers. Tyler, of course, takes her on directly to try to help her. And she kicks him, and he flies against a rock wall, and he's demorphed. Earlier in the episode, they made a point of showing us with Tyler that when people are transformed into elves, they get weaker. And Tyler just got demorphed by getting kicked by an elf. Shelby pulls her dino saber out of her ass. You can see here, it really just comes from nowhere. Tyler hold fights her and starts hitting her with the clips. But he doesn't do really a good job of it. For example, he says that Shelby's not afraid to have fun and be goofy. And they show the NZ boys audition. Shelby was actually auditioning, and Tyler was trying to impress Shelby. That was a serious moment for both of them. But it was one of the better moments in Dino Charge, so I was happy to see it again. Tyler then pours out his heart, saying that Shelby is super smart and fun to be around, and that is why he really likes her. Seriously? Kaylee is free to love Chase from off-screen, but after 2 years of what was really actually quite good relationship building, Tyler just really likes Shelby? The two of them are in love. Just say it. You can almost picture Chip or one of the other writers at the writing table going, okay, see, the really cool thing about it is that he never actually says the words. So you can't be 100% sure if they're actually an item. You know, it's really ambiguous and it lets the audience wonder if, no! The spell is finally broken, Shelby gets her Energem back, and the Rangers go and chase down Heximas. Tyler says that coal is going to the naughtiest person of all, Heximas himself. Heximas already has the coal. That doesn't make any sense, or the writers even try. Tyler and Shelby morph, a side-by-side morphing sequence that is the very last one the show gives us. Is it cute that Tyler and Shelby were both the show's first morph and its last morph? Yes. Does it excuse the fact that over 2 seasons the show never gave us a full 10 Ranger morphing sequence and that most of this team did not get solo morphing sequences? What do you freaking think? Dino Charger, ready! Are you serious? Why would Kendall have developed the Dino Charger technology if they never found the Energems? I was fully expecting an Energem morph, like we got in End of Extinction. There shouldn't be any Dino Chargers! Tyler goes SuperCharge, which requires the use of Rexy, the Tyrannosaurus Zord, but don't worry, we're getting to that. And the Rangers use the Victory Maximum Final Strike on Heximas' sleigh. Man, the Rangers were dicks to vehicles this week. Heximas says that he has a surprise 65 million years in the making. No, Tyler, let me say it this week. Let me guess. Magna Beam? Apparently Tyler was shocked and he was knocked out of SuperCharge mode due to that shock. And the Rangers summon their Zords. It just doesn't stop. Why are the Zords here? Why would Zenowing have built the Zords if the Energems were never lost? You don't get a get-out-of-jail-free card, Power Rangers! You gotta roll 3 times! The Rangers combine all of their Zords, forming the Ultra Zord, the Plesiocharge Megazord P.A.C.A formation, which Kendall gets to not only summon, but actually drive alongside Philip, and the Terracharge Megazord Ankylo formation. Kendall is not in the Super Drive morph sequence, but then is in Super Drive mode in the cockpit. You know what? I'm warmed up at this point. Just keep it coming, SuperCharge. Keep it coming. Well, it just wouldn't be a fitting farewell to SuperCharge without one last anti-climatic Zord fight, right? 1 attack, 2 attack, whoa, 3 attack, and then the finishing move, the combined Ultra Plasma Final Blast. Everybody, including Keeper and Zenowing, are celebrating in the cafe, singing Jingle Bells, which, by the way, was written by a man from my current hometown, Quitman, Georgia. As Chase and Tyler put the star on the tree, and Coda and Warg bring out pies. That sentence makes me want to break things. As Santa comes to deliver the Rangers their presents, but wait, didn't they already get their lumps of coal? Tyler freaks out and falls off the stepladder into the pies, launching them all over the Rangers for one last slapstick gag. The most telling sign about how I felt about this episode is that it ended with a trailer for Power Rangers Ninja Steel, the upcoming season, and one that I have definitive mixed feelings about going into. And my reaction was, oh, good, something different's coming. Let's dig up some super fossils. One last time. Which is probably something this show should be happy about. Episode 22, Here Comes Heximas. Pros, the show took a chance by setting this episode after the story finale, and the Rangers showed really nice joy at seeing Coda and Ivan again. Cons, multiple time travel errors, another inconsequential holiday clip show, and one of the most disappointing endings to a season ever. Dino SuperCharge ends with what is history for this channel. Let me go ahead and put up this episode's score. Yep, there it is. This episode added nothing to Dino SuperCharge and took a decent amount of good feelings away, so I had to score it appropriately. Here Comes Heximas gets Orange Ranger Video's first ever 0 out of 5. I have given out a score lower than a 1 before. Power of 6 during Super Megaforce got, as far as I can recall, my only 1/2 out of 5 score. But this episode was just even lower than that. While I'm getting my bile warmed up, let me go ahead and get the good points out of the way so they don't get drowned out by the oncoming storm. It was really gutsy of the writers to set this episode after End of Extinction, the story finale, I will admit. I was fully expecting them to just jump back before End of Extinction with little to no explanation as to why we suddenly went back. It was really brave of the writers, with all of the chances that were taken in the finale, to say, no, we're going to write the story forward from there. Kudos for that. As I said during End of Extinction, this team has always felt very close to each other, like a family. This was conveyed very well in this episode, especially as the circumstances of the story gave each of the core Rangers their own separate reaction to seeing that Ivan and Coda had come back. But really, it was this hug of Coda by Kendall that made me smile the widest. Overall, this episode just had a great, the band's back together feeling to it, even if it was just one episode and it had only been a couple of weeks. Here we go. This episode featured some incredibly lazy feeling writing that was just covered in time travel errors. Now, I will grant you, time travel is incredibly difficult to write with everything you have to keep track of. That's the reason most writers don't bother with it in the first place. Most of the time travel errors in this episode centered around the fact that the Rangers would not have had access to the tools that make them Rangers. Besides the Energems, really, but really not even those. There should have been no Zords. There should have been no Dino Chargers. None of that stuff should have existed. You retconned it out of existence. You don't get to just ignore that. It's insulting even to the intelligence of the children watching. You know, as these seasons have gone on, especially SuperCharge, I've had this growing feeling from the show of just do it. It's not like the kids are gonna notice. I'm kind of less passionate about the holiday clip show thing because, hey, I mean, we could be getting clip shows and silly holiday specials. This at least takes out 2 birds with 1 stone. But still, a straggler from Sledge 1 shows up and makes the Rangers tell each other why they're special. No impact, no meaning. It was absolutely ineffective as an episode. By the way, this episode ends with kind of a reinforcements from the future situation. Ivan and Coda are back in the present day, with no indication that Keeper's going to take them back to their own times. I mean, I would assume that he was going to, but we don't see it on screen, so who knows for sure? Did they stay? Did they go home? And why is Dino Charge so obsessed with letting us decide things? So, this is how Dino Charge ends. My freshest memories of the show are quite literally the worst episode I've ever reviewed. A literal 0. An episode that felt like the writers didn't care while they were writing it. In fact, an episode that felt like they didn't even remember they were supposed to write it and rushed it out at the last minute. The air is all let out of the balloon. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not come to honor Dino Charge, but to bury it. With these 2 seasons finally buried and the shovel laid down, it is now time to turn the page to a surprisingly short off-season. That Ninja Steel trailer that I mentioned said that the show is coming back in January. Now, I took a look back and Dino Charge actually premiered on January 30th. So the show comes back in either the last week of January or the first week of February. Since we now know that it's January, I am pegging January 28th as the premiere date for Power Rangers Ninja Steel. But that is not confirmed. But it's like I keep telling you, heroes, just because the show goes off the air doesn't mean this channel shuts down. I happen to have the menu for this season's off-season videos right here, so why don't you take a look? As usual, we'll start with a wrap-up of the just-ended season, this time taking a look back on Dino Charge as a whole on December 19th. The next video comes out the day after Christmas, so let's take a look over the Power Rangers Christmas specials. It would be a top 10 video, but there have only been 8. Moving on to January 2nd, the day after New Year's, let's do the same thing and take a look at what's coming for Power Rangers in what looks to be a big 2017 year for the franchise. As we move deeper into January, I'm going to give in to you guys a little and talk a little Toku. I'm going to do what should be some interesting back-to-back top 10 videos. My top 10 Kamen Riders and top 10 Super Sentai seasons. And then, January 23rd, I'll tell you what I want for my birthday from Ninja Steel. It's on the 25th, falling right between the video and the premiere. Alrighty, that's going to finally wrap up another season of Power Rangers, the 3rd that I have completely reviewed. I want to thank you guys so much for coming along for the ride. I'm doing this as much for you folks as for me. You folks that have subscribed to the channel, and you comment, you're always so encouraging in the comments, and all of that good stuff. Make sure to stick with me through the off-season, and in no time, it'll be time for Power Rangers Ninja Steel episode reviews. So, for one last time, that's going to do it for another Power Rangers Dino SuperCharge episode review. Thank you guys so much, as always, for watching. Make sure to like the video by clicking the like button right down below. Let me know what you thought of this episode and of my review of it in the comments below. And subscribe to the channel for all the weekly geekly, also making sure you ring that bell to get your weekly notifications. And if you happen to have a couple of dollars lying around you don't have anything else to do with, you can head over to my channel page and click that blue support button, and I would really appreciate it. See you guys for off-season videos and Ninja Steel. Until then, may the power protect you. Bittersweetly, we have reached the end of our time with Keeper and the Ranger Kids. Yes, bittersweetly, it's time. Shoot! And don't you worry, this is far from the last Tyler gives Kendall her present, and I don't know the rest of it. He could have picked a day for Ivan and Coda. Really? He could have picked it, just, wow, okay. Coda tells Tyler who he is with the help of memories. Who really knows where, respectively. Well, who knows where, really, respectively. Heximas has a rocket sleigh! No, that's a lie from Satan. Heximas sicks Shelby on the Rangers along with the Vivics. Tyler then pours out his heart, saying that Shelby is super... Kaylee is free to love Chase from off-screen, but... who knows? Dino Charger, ready! Yeah, and the Terror Charge Megazord Ankylo formation. And the Terror Charge Megazord Ankylo formation. And now I forgot. And one of the most disappointing endings to a season. Psst. Episode 22. Here comes Heximas. Pros, the show took a chance by setting this episode after... Sassy! Episode 22. Here comes Heximas. Pros, the show took a nice chance. Episode 22. Here comes Heximas. Yeah! Answer? Besides the Energems, really, but really not even those. Really not even those. Make sure to stick with me for the Power Rangers off-season and off-season.